Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is the 26th July 2016. The first article is related to the recent interactions between Ms. Mayawati and the BJP MP from UP. So now what it says is this: in a democracy, its robustness depends upon the quality of the public discourse. On the other side, if the quality of the public discourse is converted into a personal verbal attack and physical attack, it ultimately leads to a democracy which functions on the basis of threat. So in this case, either the comments of the BJP MP or reaction of Ms. Mayawati to it, both of them are not in the decorum of the democracy. Added to that, Mayawati offering the MP or seats in the next coming UP elections on the basis of a bid is also not in the sound democratic values. Now coming to Islamic State in Afghanistan, you know that whenever there is a chaos, confusion, it is a robust ground for the terrorism to grow. That is where in Syria and Iraq the IAS grew. Now in these circumstances, recently a series of attacks are made on Afghanistan. As the size of the space of ISIS is shrinking in Syria and Iraq, it is more focusing on the new grounds, that is Libya and Afghanistan. So in this case, the military of the Afghanistan as an institution is not yet developed well. And there is a sectarian context to the violence. It means the ISIS is targeting the Shias, and it's going to deepen the sectarian violence, bringing it to the verge of crisis. Finally, the Afghanistan, still it has new problems coming up with the Pakistan, and their relations with Haqqani network or negotiations with the Taliban, they are not on the right track. So in these circumstances, the challenges are going to worsen for the Afghanistan, and the sectarian narrative will complicate the things further. And the next is, let us talk about the monetary policy. Now, inflation targeting is recommended by the Urjit Patel Committee. What is meant by inflation targeting? The government will give a bandwidth, and the inflation has to be maintained within this particular bandwidth. So in this case of inflation targeting, in India, the Monetary Policy Committee, based on the inflation targets given by the government, will determine the interest rates. So in this case, inflation targeting, how appropriate it is the question. India's monetary policy has multiple functions. Now, it has to generate the employment, provide for the stability, provide for the availability of money. Everything are in the objective framework of the monetary policy. But in the West, inflation targeting has come up with an idea that the monetary policy cannot perform these vivid functions. So rather it can be confined to the nominal value of inflation targeting. And the second is, it provides for a predictability to the business with regard to monetary policy framework. And it helps in the decision making of the business. That's where the inflation targeting has come up. But in India, the situation is different. The environment which India has to work is different. If you take US, UK, they can trade in their own currencies, but India cannot. And the inflation targeting also did not take into consideration the supply constraints and also external constraints. Because India is an open economy now, whatever happens somewhere in the world will have direct or indirect impact on India. These constraints are not taken into consideration. And added to that, the term which is used is called sterilized intervention whenever the currency dollar flow increases into the country. So when the dollar flow increases, the government buybacks the dollars. To that extent, RBI releases the currency. And RBI again releases the bonds to suck this particular money in the form of bonds. So it means when the people buy the bonds, when we give the higher interest rates, then automatically it leads to greater inflation. It means there is a complex web of things which happens when a monetary policy has to be devised. So in this case, the decision making in the monetary policy shall be based on much wider criteria rather than on inflation alone. Coming to Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, what it says is the gestation period up to 20 weeks, a pregnancy can be aborted. But if the pregnancy is proving to be dangerous to the mother, it can be aborted at any point of time. But however, two registered medical practitioners have to give their assent for that particular abortion. So this is what is in discussion. Now coming to the Prime Minister and President relations. The Prime Minister Modi has said that the Pranab Da is more like a guardian and mentor. It is the President, if you take the Article 78 of the Constitution, he has to guide his government. So those are the words which are used by the Prime Minister, that is President of India is a guide and a mentor. Now coming to use of the pellet guns. Now we need to balance two things over here. The morale of the police and then their effectiveness in the crowd dispersal. At the same time, making sure that they will not use the excessive force against the citizens. So in this context, the job of the police is very delicate. If the government of the day excessively reacts to the situation, the police may lose the morale. And the punishment-centered government may not work well over here. So in this context, the police are the people who are authorized to use force on behalf of the state. Any failure of the state reflects it on the police. And it means any law and order position that reflects from this failure, ultimately police becomes accountable. So in this context, a fine balance is necessary, but however, accountability has to be ensured, and this accountability shall not lead to the deprivation of the morale for the police. Now the solar plane, that is Solar Impulsor 2, it has completed its world tour, total rounding the world around 42,000 kilometers. So it provides an impetus for the regenerative energy, renewable energy. Now coming to it never trickles down. So a series of articles are coming in Hindu on 25 years of reform implementation. So some right economists, they talk in positive, some talk in negative. Most of the left economists talk in negative about the reforms. So in this case, Mr. Prabhat Patnaik, what he talks about is the state controls are lost, and the people who got benefited when the state controls are lost are the big business and the corporates, especially the multinational corporations. So the capital started freely moving across the countries after liberalization. The subsidies have come down, the welfare programs have come down, the farmers got worst affected, the rural-urban divides have increased, and the middle class started gaining, and these people started supporting the reforms. On the other side, the lower income groups and their situation got worsened in the country. So in these circumstances, the weakened workforce through diluted labor laws, etc., they are making the work environment more insecure in India. So this is what he talks about. So these are the articles for today. Thank you very much. And one more thing is, from on 28th, probably I may not be able to upload the current affairs. So I'm traveling to Harvard for a week. So in this case, once I land in US, I'm going to upload the videos for you again. And sorry for the inconvenience. Thank you.